This is episode 550 of the Rio Grande Foundation's Tipping Point, New Mexico. I'm Paul Gessing.
And I'm Wally Drangmeister.
I'm president of the Rio Grande Foundation, New Mexico's free market think tank. You can find out more about the foundation at riograndefoundation.org. Wally, we've been talking a lot about electric vehicles recently, and we're going to do a little bit more of that today because really we're fighting one of the, I think, most epic battles that we've ever fought here at the Rio Grande Foundation in terms of regulations being pushed by Governor Lujan Grisham through her unelected Environmental Improvement Board, and Rio Grande Foundation virtually alone is pushing back against those, at least on a grassroots level. There may be people having insider conversations and talking, oh, please, Michelle, don't do it to us. We're going to be nice and maybe support you in some way or something. I have no insider information. All I know is that we are pushing back as hard as possible, and your help is needed in this effort. KeepYourCarsNM.com and go there to submit your comment. But starting off this week, had a opinion piece on this issue in the Sunday Albuquerque Journal, as well as the Las Cruces Sun News, have received more engagement, certainly, than is typically the case with a Journal op-ed, but it is gratifying, not just the Journal, but the Sun News. I got a county commissioner down there fired up about what I said in a hostile way. But yeah, definitely a pressing issue, arguably, I think, when it comes to state politics right now, the most pressing issue faced by the freedom aligned folks like us, and being pushed on us by the radical environmentalists and their minions in the governor's mansion.
Yes, Paul, this issue is we're going to get to live with this one for a long time if this rule goes into effect, and not in a good way. Far from it. One of the issues that I've increasingly seen with this is, right now, where's the governor? She's on her way to Australia, no doubt in a electric-powered boat or airplane.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
But here's the thing: was she going to Australia to talk about hydrogen? Well, hydrogen is also an alternative fuel source to gasoline and diesel for transportation, and so But if we have to use just electric vehicles in ever-increasing numbers, it's not a question of, will there be problems? It's just how bad will they be, and what will it do to the state of New Mexico, particularly if we go out there ahead of surrounding states in terms of doing things to us with our relatively low incomes, our huge geography, our issues with providing electricity, just a few of the things with electric cars. And that doesn't mean that I'm one of those that says you can't do electric vehicles, but to do these heavy-handed mandates where you've got to do it right now, just crazy. And what do we see with the prices of the cars right now, Paul? They're going up. What do we see with the issues related to them? They're going up big time. And so I don't know. It just seems like this is one of those things that, it will maybe one day be overturned once a lot of damage is done to the state of New Mexico. But, one of the things I've looked at over the years and learned here actually on Tipping Point, New Mexico, was Japan put in a high-speed rail system, and it really was the beginning of the downturn economically for all of Japan. Hopefully that this vehicle mandate won't do the same thing to New Mexico, because it could hit us hard in everywhere from the number of spaces. It makes construction go up. The vehicles are expensive. Just right now, it looks like this approach is destined for failure, but that doesn't mean we're not going to try it.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll see about that, but got a lot of news items relating to electric vehicles. Not all of them specifically about the governor's mandated plans for electric cars. For example, the city of Albuquerque is involved in electrifying its bus fleet, and we all did. You could go back in time and
Part two, right? At
yeah,
least.
listen to those episodes from the Build Your Dreams days when we were talking about that Chinese company's failures to provide electric buses, the lawsuit, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, after reverting to so-called hybrid buses, the city of Albuquerque has now been in working with Proterra. They are, it's safe to say, a chosen company of the Biden administration, receiving dollars through the Inflation Reduction Act, and yet they still went bankrupt. But the city of Albuquerque has an agreement on the books to purchase another 20 buses from Proterra by 2026. I guess the filing of bankruptcy that they are in allows them to kind of keep moving forward. We've got 5 buses on the street. You may have seen some of those electric buses. But the Heartland Institute, a conservative think tank and publication, recently broke a story that 8 electric buses purchased by Southern Teton Area Rapid Transit. Now, I don't know if that's Jackson, Wyoming, or where. Can't imagine a ton of people in Jackson, Wyoming riding the bus, but hey, that's a separate issue. That Proterra, in Chapter 11 bankruptcy, has been unable to provide replacement parts. Therefore, those 8 electric buses are unavailable. And, it is a risk to buy products from companies that are suffering from serious financial difficulties. Unfortunately, the city of Albuquerque and its current leadership don't seem to care. So we may wind up in a position where we do not have the replacement parts to keep these buses going down the road. Now, we're supposed to get another, like I said, 20 of them from Proterra by 2026. Who knows if the company will be around by then, et cetera, et cetera. But this is a mess, and it's yet another indicator that the supply chain issues and kind of these businesses involved in the electric world are simply not ready for prime time.
Yeah, Paul, and it's interesting. If you look back at, just New Mexico's touch on the history of bus manufacturing, there's been the plant in Roswell that has undergone several iterations of rebirth and eventual death. It's a tough business to be in. But when it comes to now the electrified version, I think the risks are even higher. And there are a lot of car companies out there that are trying to make the switch to electrified vehicles that look like if things don't turn around for them and some of the biggest names internationally from a car manufacturer point of view, we may have a whole lot of vehicle manufacturers that go bankrupt in the course of doing this, how it's being approached. So not a surprise, but the fact is that buses are difficult. You wouldn't think that that's the case, but in electric buses, who knows? But any vehicle that you can't get parts for is not going to be a reliable vehicle that's going to do what you want.
Exactly. So that is a one form of electric kind of mass transit, so to speak. Although we don't need to go into the woes of the Albuquerque bus system, which thanks to the free buses and the lack of safety and the lack of drivers willing to drive those buses, they have been continuously cutting service on their bus routes. So that's just beyond the pale of this conversation. We're going to go on to another local Albuquerque bus transit debacle. This one, it's not going to cause anybody commuting problems on their way to work, but it still is emblematic of the very serious problems with electric vehicles. This from the Downtown Albuquerque News. You have to just subscribe to this. newsletter, if you will. It's good reporting, but it is not up on a website anywhere. And we noted back in January that the Albuquerque Biopark was transitioning from its quaint train on tracks to a electric shuttle that lacks any soul whatsoever, but was supposed to be green and take people from the biopark to the zoo and vice versa. It was, I think, just a broadly speaking, unfortunate shift. Yet another virtue signal by Mayor Keller. Back in January, there was reports that there were serious issues with the train. It did eventually get moving, or shuttle, I should say, not train. The shuttle was indeed in service, but then apparently, according to Downtown Albuquerque News, summer came and there were challenges getting the train going when it was really warm, and they had problems on really cold days. So as long as it's just right, Goldilocks weather, this shuttle works just fine. But as the Downtown Albuquerque News reports, the people mover resembling a small train had supply chain delays, this time from Europe. They had shut it down, which is now shut down. And as they say, no timeline for putting it back into service. We're trying to get some parts from Europe to Albuquerque, according to a spokesman for the city's arts and culture department. Then they have to test and make sure that extreme heat and cold either can be dealt with, or they just have to take it off of service. And of course, we are here in late October. River of Lights is right around the corner. The zoo and the Biopark especially, as the host of River of Lights, goes from a very nice, quiet place of peaceful repose to being a mob scene. And you would like to have one of these attractions open for people during that time, but doesn't look like it's going to happen.
Oh, just same song, same verse, Paul. A lot of these issues happen, and guess what? This is not unique to this industry. There's a lot of industries when new technologies are rammed out into the marketplace. There are a lot of problems, sometimes for a long time. Most of the time, they are the products are improved upon and get better over time to the point where they actually find a place in the marketplace. But sometimes they don't. Sometimes they die away, and it's going to be interesting, particularly in this heavier vehicle market. That you think you need a lot of batteries for your Tesla. You need a lot of batteries for something that's a trolley, a bus, a local, even mini train situation. And not a good sign. I will go on record, Paul, as saying the first round of electric buses in Albuquerque. I read the initial journal article talking about the range of the buses and the fact that was exactly the range that they needed to drive. And I said to myself, that means they're not going to work, because they always do those range calculations in perfect weather without uphills and downhills. And guess what? We don't have perfect weather in Albuquerque, and we have uphills and downhills. And if you don't take that into account, you're going to have problems. And we've had problems and continue to have them with these vehicles.
There are many snide remarks I could make at this point, but I will just leave it. Let's just say that there are some people out riding the bus that could benefit from getting behind those buses and helping to push them. Maybe not just in the weight loss department, but also maybe in sweating out some of the toxins that they may have ingested all too recently. But we'll just leave it there. Now, these are just a couple of articles that we have seen locally in the past week. There are other stories that, EVs and the mad push, not just by Michelle Lujan Grisham, but by the Biden administration and other states like California. I think there is a enhanced level of attention on this issue due to so much focus among policymakers. But Yahoo News, as mainstream as a mainstream resource can be, or news outlet can be, ran an article. I'm a mechanic. Here's why an EV may end up being more expensive than a traditional car. Released October 21st. And the long story short is that you have battery replacements. Now, they say EV batteries last between 8 and 15 years. Well, I've got news for you. Most vehicles on the road are in excess of 8 years, or at least the average vehicle is expected to last more than 8 years. I myself am driving a minivan that is 8 years old, and I would be very disappointed if suddenly my battery crapped out. We've already had to replace a traditional battery in a traditional gas-powered vehicle, but replacing an electric vehicle is a much more costly proposition. So, yeah, if you're getting up to 15 years, that's a good starting point, because I think a lot of people do drive. You see cars on the road for 15 years. Certainly, 8 years is kind of at the baseline of where you want to own a vehicle and have it last that long. Service options, high insurance rates, purchase price, charging infrastructure that you have to purchase yourself. They estimate that the cost of an electric vehicle over the life of the car will be $13,000 higher than it will be for a gas-powered vehicle. So that's one mechanic's estimate. You can read the article for yourself and agree or disagree based on your own driving habits and assumptions. But again, this is something that the governor is pushing in a way that is going to affect low income and average citizens even more than than wealthier, higher income people. Now, I expect and believe very strongly that based on the amount of oil and gas money we have flowing into New Mexico and the budget, that during this upcoming session, she may do some unprecedented things in terms of providing subsidies to people who purchase electric vehicles in order to prop up this policy. But it just, what are the opportunity costs of all that? What could we be doing with these dollars? And what happens when and if the oil and gas revenue does dry up? It just, so many questions and so many problems. Wally?
Yes, I'm with you, and this is one of those. It's amazing how many years in a row, Paul, we've had nearly unprecedented levels of new revenue for the state to spend, and man, it looks like this might be this might be what we're doing, and uh, things that and the same thing with federal government spending. Anytime you're spending a lot of money and it doesn't really do anything to enhance the productivity of the businesses in your state, or make things dramatically better in some other way, it tends to be a inflation encouraging, business dampening issue. And I think this one is really teed up to be that here in New Mexico. And so it'll be interesting because unlike some of the things that have happened, she'll have to go through the legislature on this one. And whether you're a Democrat or a Republican, there are a lot of people that live a long way from an urban area. And again, we've talked, that's not probably the initial people that are going to be drawn to an electric vehicle with their current level of reliability, their current price, and their current range between charges.
Yeah, it's obviously going to be interesting to watch. This governor, unlike any governor I've seen in my time in New Mexico, or really, outside of a few people like Gavin Newsom in California, she really does whatever she wants. And again, we had the chance to oust her last year, and it is deeply, deeply disappointing to me to this day that New Mexico voters saw fit to return her to office. Now we are left with the unenviable task of pushing back at every turn against a power hungry governor who really, uh, the fetters are off. She doesn't care about reelection. She is going to just push her agenda, and especially in an area where she doesn't have to go through the legislature, legislatures of her own party and arguably a highly progressive group of people. But even this kind of policy going through the legislature, I think, would be uh, unlikely to make it through both houses in a way that the governor wanted it to be. And that's why she's able to do it through this body. Now, another, if you aren't just concerned about the costs and the performance of these vehicles, uh, in the Telegraph, a British publication, there is a column also that I found through Yahoo News. We must put a stop to the electric vehicle revolution before someone gets hurt. Allison Pearson, Wednesday, October 18th. She notes that, and this is basically the information I've seen as well, that it is hard to say based on the relatively small number of electric vehicles out there if EVs are more prone to fires or not than gas-powered vehicles. But there's no question that the fires that break out thanks to EVs that involve burning lithium batteries are much more intense and challenging to put out. Uh, According to this article, in the past couple of years, two huge ships carrying thousands of EVs have gone up in flames because of the batteries catching on fire. The Felicity Ace in February of 2022 led to the vessel sinking in the Atlantic along with a cargo of 4,000 vehicles. Very green, that particular incident, I'm sure. And then the Fremantle Highway cargo ship caught on fire in the North Sea. EVs had overheated, and during the salvage operation, all the cars were washed to remove chemicals from the fire before they came off the ship. One charred vehicle in which the fire appeared to be extinguished actually reignited as it was lowered into the water. It's just that, along with individual vehicles that have caught on fire. In one case, it took 20,000 gallons of water to put out a single vehicle fire, according to this author. And then the London Fire Brigade has warned that e-bike fires are up 60% this year, and that e-scooters and e-bikes have caused 12 deaths and 190 injuries because, of course, e-bikes involve those lithium batteries as well. So those are obviously not yet being mandated by our dear leader, Michelle Lujan Grisham, but these are some serious issues, and it's going to cause increased problems for fire departments and for public safety with the potential for these really intense vehicle fires.
Yeah, and so Paul, you have a couple of things. You have the vehicle fires, and I just want to say I've done a lot of reading. I've contemplated an e-bike, an e-mountain bike, so that my not quite as agile body can make it up some of the hills I used to make it up in my youth. But one of the things that you'll do a little research is the better bikes have a way to basically turn off the battery so it's not engaged, and you absolutely positively want to buy a bike that has that feature because I've seen lots and lots of stories about e-bikes, and while they're the mass of the batteries is far lower than a car, it's certainly plenty to get your garage going up in a big ball of flame if you leave it in there and you have an issue with something like that. And so, this as we talk about these risks, then the insurance comes into play, and both on the transport of electric vehicles as well as driving them around. We're going to have to wait and see. But there's already an article in the Telegraph about what's going on in Britain, and there's some insurers that don't want EVs, they won't insure them anymore. And believe me, we have these issues in the United States. For example, there's many home insurance. The home insurance companies won't insure houses that are in forested areas for obvious reasons because the risk is too great. But yeah, we're in the very early stages of these, and as the numbers of them go up, we continue to see some of the things that are issues. And again, instead of a market based kind of pull with these vehicles being pulled in the market, we just accelerate the problems with the push into the market or the requirements.
Yeah, there's serious conversations about whether you should charge your electric vehicle in your house or not, and or whether it should be outside, not just because of the charging, but also because of the volatility of the batteries, et cetera, et cetera. So, uh, anyway, just a reminder, folks, keep your cars nm.com. Go there, offer your thoughts to the Environmental Improvement Board. I believe that we can push back against these folks. They will be meeting in mid-November, so get your comments in now. Also, uh, that will drop a line to legislators, at least in certain areas of the state that we've selected to receive those messages as well. So, we're going to fight this thing as much as we can. A new report from the American Legislative Exchange Council highlights New Mexico's mediocre ranking in, broadly speaking, school choice. It's not just private school choice, it's various other options, including charter schools, homeschool, and other ways in which people can more or less choose the educational options for their children, interdistrict transfers as well. This is from the American Legislative Exchange Council. We have a long conversation or a full episode conversation with Andrew Handel, the author of this report, on a upcoming episode of Tipping Point, New Mexico. So I won't go into too much detail, except to say that New Mexico ranks a disappointing 35th overall in the report. All of our neighboring states vastly outperform us in the report. We're rated as a D, and it's hard to reconcile why a state like New Mexico, where we're really at the very, very bottom in the U.S. in terms of educational outcomes, why we're not focused on doing more in terms of reform. But of course, we have elected politicians legislatively and in the governor's office who do not seem to value your child and their positive outcomes. It's much more about what the teachers' unions care about and their political interests. So check out this ALEC.org report, the 2023 Index of State Educational Freedom.
Yeah, Paul, and we live in a time warp. Sometimes podcasts are obviously recorded for future release, but it is interesting. The thing New Mexico has is that educational attainment is low and educational freedom is low, and so it's one of those things. There are states that have decent educational attainment without educational freedom, but we're certainly not that. So, yeah, very interesting. So, one of these days, this may become an issue that politically is going to be addressed in New Mexico, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Exactly. All right. And on the education issue, Arizona is one of the states that is leading the way in terms of private school choice, specifically education savings accounts. The program is now in place and working as intended. And there's always questions about whether the programs themselves work as they. There's, I guess, a concern, especially among folks maybe on the progressive side of the aisle. Is this program going to only benefit the wealthy who know the system and are able to uh, save money for themselves by taking their kids out of the public school and getting this scholarship funded through the taxpayers? Are we just helping them out, or are they just taking the scholarship for kids that are already in private schools? Well, a new chart, a new batch of information came out about Arizona. Now, I don't know these districts per se, but demand for Arizona education savings accounts is greatest in the most disadvantaged school districts in the state, where San Carlos Unified, Colorado City Unified, Fort Thomas Unified, Concho Elementary, and Young Elementary are the highest utilizing of the education savings accounts, and they also have some of the highest poverty rates in Arizona among the school districts. So I'm going to post this at Airs of Enchantment today, and you can go see the chart for yourself. But the answer is that, not surprisingly, the people who are facing the most financial challenges to send their kids to a high quality school, and that probably are living in an area where the school isn't as high quality, those are the people that are demanding the ESAs, the Education Savings Accounts choice, and they're demanding that their kid have a better option. So it's not a surprise to me, but it probably surprises some of the progressive so-called folks out there.
Yeah, because they're, Paul, when it comes down to it, what does everyone quote want? Even though they politically, we in our state have policies that are polar opposite to what we say we want, is they want a good education for their good education for their children. And if they receive that in the public school that's nearest their home, guess what? They don't have a lot of incentive to look at a charter school or any other schools. But if the education that they're receiving with the default choice is not good, you know, uh, I think it's an excellent sign. I mean, and I think it does show how important this is to families, and also shows their ability to what shall we say, advocate on behalf of their students, regardless of income levels. So that's a very interesting development, because yeah, you are right. One of the talking points are these things only benefit the rich, and the poor don't have the skills that are necessary to even know what this is about, much less navigate it.
Yeah, now here's one for the news of the weird files, Wally. Of course, elections are approaching rapidly. In fact, early voting is going on in uh, the city of Albuquerque and other places that have November elections. So please do get out and vote. We had a great conversation with Carol White from the New Mexico Restaurant Association a few weeks ago about how the business coalition that has done some very positive things in terms of Albuquerque City Council has aligned in what they're working on in terms of these candidates. There's also school board elections, but in District 6 here in the city of Albuquerque, we had something pretty unique, and I kind of wish that Jay Leno was still at it with his headlines from the newspapers that he would share on his late show with Jay Leno or the Tonight Show, I forget which, but Abel Otero was a candidate. I guess he has just announced that he's ending his campaign, but he in a maybe it says more about the electorate that he's appealing to than anything else, had campaigned on life experiences which included a felony conviction and incarceration. Well, according to the Albuquerque Journal, October 19th, they could find no record of time served by Mr. Otero. So he was essentially saying that he had been convicted of crimes that he had never been convicted or served time for as a campaign item. Now, that is a unique approach to elections. I guess maybe President Trump could try something like that. He could, I've been convicted on everything. I don't know. It'd be a weird move. I don't think that works as well on the national level as it may have worked here in the city of Albuquerque. But Wally, just crazy stuff.
Yeah, this kind of if you didn't know better, it has the local flavor of a Babylon Bee article, where you just like it's the sort of thing where it's like, oh, that could never happen. But it sounds like Mr. Otero had a rough time and a rough
Sure.
thing, and he his article and his kind of I don't know, mea culpa in the Albuquerque Journal was a bit touching. Frankly, it didn't make you want to hate the guy, but the fact is that he said he had the street cred of being in the joint, and he wasn't, and so therefore you can't be a city councilor. So. Yeah, this is a very interesting one. Wish Mr. Otero well, but it is fascinating that that became one of his planks of his campaign, and the fact that it wasn't true actually hurt him. So it's one of those for most offices. Believe me, I still do think the norm is that we don't want people elected who are convicted of felonies. I hope that's the case, at least going forward.
Yeah, well, you've spurred me. I will definitely send this to the Babylon Bee. They have a not the Bee, and of course, they're always trying to keep up with their satire in a world that becomes more and more satirical in its actual reality. Yeah, and kudos to him for whatever issues he had to overcome to being a small business person and making a better life for himself and serving his customers, and that's great. Obviously, once you start to run for city council, your political views come into play, and I'm confident, based on my reading of the news, that Mr. Otero is not somebody I would be simpatico with in regards to him being a city councilor. But as a tax-paying citizen, I believe he's opened a barbershop in Nob Hill. He is doing the Lord's work as a small business person, and that is great to see. Not sure how I would have felt about him on city council, but that's entirely up to him based on his political views, and that's where seemed to be this disconnect as a small business person. Uh, Albuquerque City Council is not known for their overall friendliness. They've gotten a little better in recent years when it comes to businesses, but tend to be a pretty anti-business group of folks. So we'll see how these elections pan out. But by all means, early voting is in full swing. Find a voting center close to you and just do it, as they say in the Nike ads.
Early, yes. Often, no.
Exactly. All right, Wally, that's where we're going to leave it. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Find all episodes at tippingpointsnm.com or at the Rio Grande Foundation's YouTube channel. Subscribe to the show at Apple, Stitcher, or tell Google Home to play Tipping Point New Mexico. Thanks to Path 3 Marketing for producing this show.